Here's what I want my application to do before we leave this module. I want the ability to pass my name as a parameter to my application. So I don't always have the application saying hello Scott. It could say hello Scott, or hello Alan, or hello Sue, or hello Jason. I can have this application say whatever I want as long as I pass that name parameter to my application. How are we going to do that? Well, let's concentrate just on these few lines of code here inside of the file. So first of all, I am inside what's known as a method in C#. This method name is main. We'll talk about some of these other keywords of the C# language that we're seeing here, like static and void. But for right now, I just want you to know that this is a method. Inside of the curly braces, I place the code that I want to execute when this method is invoked or called. And how does this method get called? Well, when I launch a command line application, a console application in .NET Core, by convention, what we call the entry point of the application is a method named main. So in other words, when I type .NET run, or I say .NET and then gradebook.dll, what the .NET runtime is looking for is a method named main, and then it says, oh, this is the entry point for the application. Let's start executing the code that is inside of that method. And the code inside of this method currently says, please go to the console and write out the following text, which is hello Scott. Well, I want this to be parameterized. And that's where the parameter here comes in with C#. So when I'm defining a method, I can then have some parentheses, and inside of the parentheses after the method name, I can have 0 or more parameters. Every parameter consists of a type and a name for that parameter. So the name of my parameter is args, A-R-G-S. That's short for arguments. These are the arguments that are being passed to the application. And the type for this parameter, because C# is what we call a strongly typed language, every variable, every method itself has a type. In this case, the type of this parameter is a string array. So these square brackets after the word string tell me that this is an array. So first of all, what is a string? It's a sequence of characters like hello Scott. And what is a string array? A string array would be a collection of those strings. So I can have 0 or more strings being passed in as args. So any arguments that I type on the command line that I want to pass to this program will arrive in this args parameter. Now, perhaps you've worked with arrays in other languages. Arrays are a popular data type that you can find in many different languages. And any language that has arrays will typically provide some feature that allows you to access a specific item inside of an array. So someone might pass me 3 arguments, and how would I access specifically this second element in that array of 3 arguments? Well, in C#, I would do that by saying arg and then in square brackets 1. So the way I would read this is args sub 1. And it can sometimes be confusing to someone who's new to the C# language. Why is the second element of the array number 1? Well, it's because in C# we have what's called zero-based indexing. When you index into an array to access a specific item, the first item in that array has an index of 0. The second item has an index of 1, and so forth. So arg sub 1 would be the second item. What I expect to do is pass to this program just a single name as an argument. So what I expect is that args sub 0 will contain the name value that I want. So what I want to do is build a string that consists of this greeting, hello, and then instead of hard coding the name here, I want the ability to place args sub 0 inside of here. So one way to do that is to say, let's take the string hello and a space, and then add to it args sub 0. So now it can be hello Scott or hello Alan, whatever I want, and then add an exclamation point. So what I'm doing here is known as string concatenation. I'm building a string out of 3 smaller string pieces. So take the string hello, concatenate onto the end of it arg sub 0. That will also be a string because I'm dealing with an array of string and I'm accessing a single individual string inside of that array here. And then take the single character that I place into a string, the exclamation point, and tack that onto the end. Another way to do this in C#, something that can be a little bit easier on the eyes, is to use a feature known as string interpolation. With string interpolation, what I do is I place a $sign in front of the opening double quote for my string. And now what I can do Instead of using the string concatenation, which forces me to break up the string and use plus signs, math operators, what I can do is have a single long string, and anywhere where I want to place in some value into this string, I can just use curly braces, and this is where I want to place args sub 0. So when I'm doing string interpolation, I can place inside of curly braces what's known as an expression in C#. An expression produces some sort of value. So the expression args sub 0 will produce the value that is the first string in the array of arguments that was passed to my program. So once again, I should be able to say, let's say hello, comma, and then whatever parameter is passed to me, and then an exclamation point. Now, what I want to do is save this file, program.cs. Very important to save your file. And let's come back out to the command line and issue a .NET Run command. Now, I've changed the source code to my application, and .NET Run is going to realize that the assembly, the gradebook.dll file that it has produced previously, is out of date for the source code that has just been saved. So .NET Run, when I execute .NET Run, it's going to rebuild my application for me, essentially run the .NET build command. And also when I run .NET Run, I need to pass along a parameter to my application. So I want to pass along the parameter Scott, except here's a little tip. If I just say .NET space run space Scott, Scott becomes a parameter to the .NET CLI, not a parameter for my application. If I'm running a console application with .NET Run, and I have a parameter that I want to pass to the application, not to the .NET CLI, then I need to place a dash dash on the command line to separate my application parameters from the .NET parameters. So .NET Run dash dash Scott is saying, let's run the current project and pass along a parameter, which is Scott. And if I change this and say .NET Run dash dash Alan, I can now receive the text, hello Alan, which is perfect. So my application has a little dynamic feature where it can change the output or the text that's being produced. What happens if I just say .NET Run and do not pass any parameters? In this case, my application is going to have an error because I'm trying to access a parameter, or I'm trying to index into an array of parameters, and I'm using an index that doesn't exist. It's outside the bounds of the array. Essentially, the array is empty. It has a length of 0. There are no parameters to the program. But yet my program's trying to get to the first element of that array, but there is no first element, so we throw an exception. As you're developing your C# source code, you'll probably run into exceptions as you're learning the language. Let's talk a little bit about how to debug this problem.